Hi students, welcome to week 11. I understand students are busy at work completing their management report, which is due on the 2nd of June, which is the Friday of week 12. And I also understand that there's been a few questions asked on the forum that I've answered promptly, and this might help you to go through those questions to frame out your answer. I also sent on the 4th of May an individual email to all students giving them further assistance and further help with starting the assignment. And I'd encourage students to look at the Q&A forum. The Q&A forum has some great ideas and questions asked by students and will help people to really start the assignment. What I'm hearing from a number of students is it's hard for them to start. What I would do is have a look at the assumptions I've provided on the Q&A forum that will help you frame out and understand your writing school. I suggest giving your writing school a name, something that's personal to you. That will help you have ownership over the writing school and will help you to determine the unique contemporary management challenges that relate to your writing school, which is the real essence of the report, determining the problems, then finding the theories of management, concepts and principles that can apply to those problems, and providing a recommendation, something that is done in business all the time. So if you have any questions, have a look at those sources. I also refer you to an email I sent to all students on the 4th of May, giving you additional assistance and helping those students to understand the components of a management report. Now, with the management report, you can utilize what I've suggested or you can go it alone. Either of those are fine. You don't have to slavishly follow the report outline that I have suggested. You can come up with your own. Regarding subheadings in the management report, I think because it's only 2,500 words long, then it's not really necessary. But I'm leaving that entirely to you, to students, to critically analyse the problem, look at criteria about presentation, and present the best report that you can in the way that you think is best. So I look forward to reading those management reports and having them marked as well. So please, if you've got any questions, contact me via email. You can write on the Q&A forum, but you really must be well underway by now. I would imagine that half the management report is already complete and that you're just looking at the final 2 weeks to flesh out one final problem, and which will help you to determine, which will help you in your response to the management report. So why don't we get started with the lecture for this week? It's regarding promoting change and encouraging adaptability. Now, it's really important as a manager to be able to help people through change processes. Change as a function in business creates stress. So I don't think we need to really understand too much about change in determining the fact that it creates stress on those individuals where change is acting on them. So what I suggest is that managers have open and honest communications with their subordinates, with their staff members, letting them know about the change that's occurring. And managers with great integrity will be able to do this really well, and managers with great ethics will be able to do this really well because they will not try to hide things from employees and be open and honest in their communications. Important when change arises that you must have to negotiate agreement and commitment from your staff. Obviously you want staff to be able to buy into the change, and you need to outline exactly where you are at the moment for the group and where you want to move to. And staff must have a say in that as they're in the environment, the management environment. And the more that you welcome staff in to make that change, make that collaboration using the human relations model approach, then the better off and that the staff are going to be less stressed by the change process. There are conditions for good dialogue between your staff and yourself as manager, and it's really important to have 3 necessary conditions before that dialogue is functioning well. and that is a mutual purpose, a mutual meaning, and a mutual respect. So people must understand why they are discussing change, why it is necessary, and a good manager will outline why that's the case. If there's a financial problem in the business, then what they need to do is make sure that the subordinates and staff members are aware of the implications of that financial problem. So if the commodity price, if you're running an iron ore mine, and you need to negotiate with staff about some redundancies, as Gina Rinehart did recently, she was very honest with her staff about the fall in iron ore prices, and she gave a number of outcomes that would be possible from that, which included redundancies. Then she negotiated with her staff and they decided to take a pay cut. So obviously mutual purpose and the fact that there is mutual meaning of outcomes, they will have an impact on people, and that you approach the negotiations with mutual respect, then there might be an outcome which is a win-win situation. I also refer you to the Fisher and Urey writings, 2002, Getting to Yes. This really talks about how it is best to negotiate with people, how you can separate people from the problem, and it really helps you to understand where each group is coming from. So the problem is that Gina Rinehart was experiencing is not that the mine was not that the mine had to have redundancies, but it was because the iron ore price had fallen. So if you look at the problem, iron ore prices falling, and separate it from the impacts, which is the people requiring redundancies in the mine, then you can focus on interests and not positions, and you can try to see things from the other party's point of view. It generates a variety of possibilities and allows you to have a number of different options before you decide on the best option as a group. It insists that results be based on some objective standard, and this really helps in the negotiation process and gains buy-in from employees. It's quite possible that there can be a win-win situation from the outcome. So maybe mining unions thinking that no redundancies take place at the mine is a win. No one loses their job. They might be thinking it's a win. The reduction in wages is also a win for the owners of the mine, Gina Rinehart. So it's quite possible that you can negotiate your way to a win-win situation. So it's very important to implement and sustain change. Once change has been identified as being necessary and the strategy must move, then you have to make sure that people are aware that change is going to happen and what the final goals are. So managers who are good at goal setting, managers who are good at communicating those goals to their employees will be able to implement and sustain the change and make sure that the business is better off after the change than it was before. Too many businesses only get through halfway through this process. And that's really dangerous because it can really sort of set up you for failure for the next time you try a strategic change. Lewin's force field analysis is important here as well. You must understand that there are forces within your organisation resisting change and there are forces for change. So if we accept that change is inevitable, you're going to get a pushback from certain areas of the managerial environment where they're resistant to change and they will need to be convinced. Part of this process is really important in being a good manager because you want buy-in from the employees. You want employees to be able to support the change, give it all that they've got, pursue it with excellence in mind, and hopefully arrive at the destination is a much more efficient and effective organisation. There are also forces for and against change that managers must understand. If we consider that there is a dysfunctional state for an organisation or an extraordinary state for an organisation, then they will provide forces for change, both positive forces and negative deviance or in the workplace, where they will be resistant to change and actively thwart the manager's procedures for change that have been put in place. These both act on the ordinary state and the normal state of change, and understanding this model shows that it's very important that change is necessary. It's part of the globalized world. It's part of the environment in which managers work these days. So if we're going to design transformational change, that's something that moves the business from an earlier state, a juvenile state, to a more mature state, then we're going to have to share our vision for the future. We're going to have to get buy-in for that vision. So we're going to have to negotiate about how people see that vision, and we're going to have to inspire people to move in that direction. We're going to share responsibility and ownership for achieving that vision, and we're going to focus on developing the capacity of people to perform at their best. This is really important if you're going to get people to share your vision and move forward for the future. I suggest that in the writing school example that you'll be using for assessment 2, that it's very important that change is discussed, and your approach to change and creating a shared vision where you have shared responsibility and ownership for achieving that vision, and you're developing on the capacity for performing that vision, then this is going to be essential for a writing school to move from one state to another. That concludes. It's a very short lecture this week. We discussed and talked in Bundaberg about other examples in our environment that probably wouldn't make sense to you now. They involve businesses that my students are intimately involved with, but not necessarily will have a national focus. But think about some businesses that have had to undergo change that you're aware of, and analyse that and see how well they did. All right, we'll see you next week.